I'm definitely one of those guys that's the cup is half full. Like I don't usually look at scenarios and think, oh man, this cup is half empty. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm definitely a more positive kind of mentally like pictured person, and I'm fortunate in that regard. And I think that was a lot of my upbringing from my dad. I've always been around entrepreneurship. I've always been around a lot of risk. I've always been around a lot of like chance and like risk taking, right? And so like those kind of situations don't scare me as much as probably other situations that would scare a lot of other people less.
Welcome, Tyler, to the Deeper Than Dope podcast.
Yeah.
Tyler Richards, I should say. I'm not introducing people by their last
It's not a great
names.
name, so it doesn't matter. Either way, it's very generic. Either Tyler or Richards are like the most common names ever.
Yeah,
right?
and I know, okay, so we got connected through Startup Ignition.
Yeah.
Which I still say is the best.
Yeah, you're a huge advocate of the program.
I know.
We appreciate it.
I hope I get at least a few
Yeah.
referrals every single time because it changed. I mean, there's been a lot of pivotal points in the business, but it was Startup Ignition.
Yeah, but
and then I took it a second time. And then,
let's get real though. It's a lot of my dad though too. I mean, he's just a
awesome.
wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
And I've been lucky to have him like in my back pocket my whole career. So I've been lucky to have him.
So we learned everything in business.
Yeah.
Startup. I'm going to do a plug in there.
Okay. Yeah. Let's plug it in. Let's plug it up.
It's a 3-day course, and it was Brady and Jaden Ward that invited me. And this was literally a month after.
Yeah. Cause I think
my solar business.
they came through like a year earlier. Yeah.
And I'm like, I just sold a company, you know?
Oh yeah.
And I was like, I was living in San Diego. I was like, I have to fly to Utah. And they're like, it's worth it. And for sure. I just didn't know anything.
Yeah. But when you sell your company, you're in that mentality of like, dude, I don't need help. I don't need this. Whatever I touch is gold. Like I got the Midas touch. Why do I need mentorship? Why do I need any kind of advisory or anything like that? But
and then you go open your eyes, like to, I guess, the small business to like real business,
scalable ventures,
and what are stocks and options and advisory shares,
cap
and
tables,
investing
and validation,
like,
business models, customer validation.
You learn it in freaking 3 days. Not that you know at least you're aware of it.
Yeah.
And then I was hitting you guys up frequently after.
Yeah.
And then John was crazy enough to join our advisory board.
Yeah, so. we always say 3 months. It's those 3 days in the actual class, but then it's 3 months of mentorship. But we always go way far and beyond 3 months. So
when I tell people,
we never tell anybody no. Yeah,
if just for the price that they charge, which is so cheap, just to have access to them for 3 months.
Yeah.
Like you should pay it.
It's by far the cheapest way you can get us involved in anything that someone's doing. So like founders or, any kind of entrepreneurial, budding entrepreneur, like that's the cheapest way you can ever get our time and attention.
And I've had a few siblings go through it. Yeah. My sister office is right here.
She was great. She's awesome. Yeah. We're trying to get more women to come through. Like we definitely need more women entrepreneurs to come through the program.
Everybody I talk with, they say, well, how'd you do what you do? And I say, start.
So
anyways, we could jump into the actual podcast.
Thank you.
So joy and fulfillment, that's what we're going after. But let's start with like a 2-minute background of
who I am. Okay. I'm, my young career, I've always been in tech entrepreneurship. I've always been around technology and software startups. Went through BYU, did my business management degree, started an application in college, ended up getting hundreds of thousands of users on that application and selling it to a competitor of ours. After that, I went and joined up another medical startup. Where I was like the
is that first one the Dev Mountain?
No.
Or you're not even there?
No, I'm not even there yet.
Okay.
Yeah. Dev Mountain was probably by far the biggest thing that I'm known for, right? Just because it was the biggest and kind of the most consumer facing thing that I've done. And Dev Mountain was what it is. It was a coding boot camp. It was a coding school where we taught people coding principles, how to become web developers.
That was also sold to a competitor, wasn't it?
Well, it was sold to a larger school. So yeah. If anybody's heard of Capella University, that's who bought my school. So Dev Mountain was classified as a coding boot camp. It wasn't even a school because it wasn't accredited. It wasn't even like certificated. It was just like anybody and everybody could come through, and you just had a skill set at the end. You didn't have like a degree or a piece of paper that said, hey, you went through this. So it was very unregulated. It was kind of the wild, wild west of education, but it was really disrupting the 4-year education. It was awesome. So instead of going to like a
3-month.
Yeah, it was a 3-month program. It was 12 weeks. Instead of going to like a 4-year computer science degree, you would come through our boot camp and learn those skills, get hands on a keyboard, really implement and get like the skill set quickly rather than talking about theory or, kind of the what's around computer science. Is more like, hey, can you build or no? And that was the end goal, is just like get these guys the skill set to actually be marketable within industry and get, a junior development job super quick. And we had super high placement rates. It was great. We were one of the most efficient coding boot camps in the country, one of the first ones in the country. And that's why we did so well, was because we were kind of at the forefront of that whole industry, caught the wave really, really well. But yeah, ended up selling it in 2016. So that was great.
And I want to see if you're open to having this discussion right here. I'm surprised.
Yeah, let's do it.
And this might have came from John. And he's like, it was within 6 months, I think, of you guys selling.
Yeah.
That you had a moment that you're like, we're going out of business. We don't have enough money.
It was right before we sold. Yeah, right before we sold.
Could you go into that a little bit? Because what we just finished with the last podcast, and what I'm a big proponent of is all businesses almost fail 1,000 times.
Oh, yeah.
And I listen to Business Word podcasts.
Dude, half of business is literally just staying in business. Yeah. No, I'm not even kidding you.
Somebody just told me it's just who can manage the train wreck best.
Yeah. But there's two things in businesses that really suck. It's not having enough customers, right? So no one wants your product. You're not selling enough. You're not doing enough, or you're not getting enough revenues in the door, right? Because money does solve a lot of problems and headache in business. But your second worst problem is having too many customers, growing too fast, scaling too quickly, because then you can't handle that growth. And that was what was happening at Dev Mountain, at that startup, that school, is because we were trying to scale and grow and go to because it was a physical location school. It wasn't online, right? So we were literally butts in chairs, classrooms, projectors, screens, teachers, mentors on location, right? And so we were trying to physically grow, dropping new locations in kind of the Midwestern United States. And this story is we were just dropping a new location in Dallas, Texas.
And specifically why I'm asking about it is how was your mental health journey through that?
So ups and downs, like the ebbs and flow of business. Right? I remember literally going home to my wife being like, dude, we're out of business. Like, we're gone. Like literally balled up in a ball on my couch, almost to tears, saying like, it's over. Like it is all over. And at that point we were doing millions of revenue. Like I was just like, we're screwed. But again, had my dad in my back pocket, told him about the situation, what we were doing. And it just turned out that we were in a huge cash crunch. We didn't have enough cash to kind of get us through the next 6 months of business, but it was a good cash crunch because we had just dropped that new location in Dallas, Texas. We probably overcommitted square footage, all the breakout rooms, classrooms, and part of Dev Mountain's whole curriculum and package was we actually provided housing for the students so they could come from anywhere and get 3 months of housing for free included within their tuition. And so, we had to basically just get all of those apartments. We had to get all the classroom space, hire all the teachers, the program managers, all these mentors. It was just a huge upfront loaded cash commitment. And we were sitting down like around November and we're just like looking at the spreadsheets. We're like, we're going to be in the red. Like literally we are going to go out. We are not going to be able to make payroll like the first week of December. What are we going to do? And I remember sitting down right around Thanksgiving time and right the week after Thanksgiving in 2015, like literally in my dad's home office, like crunching numbers until midnight, like 4 nights in a row, being like, what are we going to do? And we figured out, man, we just need like $450K in cash. And if we can get $450K in cash, take on a loan of some kind, we could literally pay that thing back in 6 months. And we ended up doing that. That's what we did.
And then so you went from, I'm going out of business to selling.
That was November 2015.
$million.
Yeah, 2015. And we sold in April of 2016 and paid off that loan right away. It was awesome.
See, those are the stories that I go back to. I'm like, I listen to all these, like FedEx almost went out of business and he went and gambled his life.
I've heard that story before.
Yeah, and it's just and then now look, FedEx is everywhere, when it came down to rolling some dice.
I remember I didn't go and gamble to get that money, but I do remember going to all the banks and everybody I knew, and I remember like Zion's Bank coming up to me like, oh yeah, and we did this whole application process to get a loan from Zion's Bank, and they ended up saying, oh yeah, we can loan you $20,000. I'm like, dude, I make $20,000 every 5 minutes with this business model. I need $500,000. And it was just so hard to get that loan. But we found this unique financing option out of Texas where their model was if you found 20% of the loan that you needed from your own kind of network and friends and family, they would do the other 80%. Okay. And so we went really quickly and raised $100,000 from our close network, and then they ponied up another $400 or $375,000 to get us over that hump, and it all checked out.
Now, were you guys looking at selling at that point?
No, never. Okay. Never.
So kind of just happened.
Oh, that's why I was like crying to my wife, because I literally thought I would be at Dev Mountain for 20 years.
If you're looking to sell, then you just say, hey, we'll take a little haircut. Freaking buy the business.
No, but we actually did end up laying off a ton of people to kind of crunch down that $450K was after we did a little bit of layoffs and getting rid of a ton of people, because HR is always your biggest expense. It's like the easiest way to cut. And I know with all these layoffs that have been happening around the country, I just had a personal friend text me this morning saying that he got laid off again, and it's happening. And I really feel for the employees, but I also feel for the founders too on the other side of that have to do that, because I've been through that. Firing is like literally one of the worst things I've ever experienced in my whole career, and specifically that one right before we sold, because what sucked was all those employees were like, you literally just fired me 6 months ago, and now you just sold for multiple millions of dollars, and I know you personally made multiple millions of dollars on that deal. I felt like honestly a jackass for the longest time, because it was like, dude, I just fired all those employees that were key people, and then 6 months later got a huge wealth of cash. That was tough.
It's not like you timed it in.
No, I didn't do it on purpose, but it's hard for them to see that, right? Yeah.
They don't know. And anyways, we've done some layoffs.
Yeah.
And
it's tough.
It's like either everybody fails or some of us fail.
Yeah, I know.
It's like if we don't do some layoffs, we're going under.
And unfortunately,
it comes down to that several times.
And unfortunately, in those layoff scenarios, you really do get rid of key, awesome people, because they're usually your highest paid people. It's like, hey, I could either fire 5 of these kind of lower level employees or one of this upper level guys. And that's what sucked. But we got through it, and it was great. So,
get out of here.
Cut. We'll cut that part.
Maybe that's the next guy coming in early. So, cut that. Mental health during that. How the hell did you get through that though? Like those nights staying up midnight. I mean, what was the support that you went to? The other founders, like, how do you get through that moment?
Yeah.
Like you're speaking to somebody else going through that right now.
Yeah.
What do they do?
Man, I would honestly say just trust in yourself. Like I'm definitely one of those guys that's the cup is half full. Like I don't usually look at scenarios and think, oh man, this cup is half empty. You know what I mean? Yeah. I'm definitely a more positive kind of mentally like pictured person, and I'm fortunate in that regard. And I think that was a lot of my upbringing from my dad. I've always been around entrepreneurship. I've always been around a lot of risk. I've always been around a lot of like chance and like risk taking, right? And so like those kind of situations don't scare me as much as probably other situations that would scare a lot of other people less. So I don't know. Yeah. I had a lot of family around me, like, right. My wife, I would go home all the time to my wife. Like I remember working 12 hours a day and, coming home for dinner and putting my kids to bed for like an hour and a half, talking to my wife, and then going back to the office. Yeah. And she understood it, and she got it. And she was really my support, like my away from office support, who I could just vent to and talk about anything, right? And then also my dad, right? You have him on your advisory board here at Dirty Dough. He's kind of been my life advisor. Yeah. Like it's really cool to have a really close mentor who I can jive with, who's my dad. I have a great relationship with. We work well together, but also he's like a business professional, right? It's a unique relationship that we have that's like family, but like business. And so it's like we're super close and tied in that regard. And so that really helped me a lot.
It sounds like your wife, I mean, you kept really open conversations, because I always, it's always better when I
separate.
When I lean on her more.
Oh, when you lean on her more. I was saying separate business and like personal life. I definitely intermingle. No, I cannot compartmentalize like that. You know what I mean? Like
I think it's like I don't want to stress her, but at the same time, I want her to support me.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of vulnerability, like, hey, we're not doing well because of X, Y,
But
Z.
you know why though?
And then she comes and freaking makes changes and we could support. And just so you know, if it doesn't work out, this is going to, and it's like, rather than just keeping it from her, showing that vulnerability for me has been huge, because the support she gives me is just
I think she immense. Actually, I think having a relationship with that, whoever it is, your loved one, if you're upfront like that, then they can go through the ebbs and flows with you, right? It's like, man, if we're having a really down time, I'm going to have to cut down my salary. We can't spend as much on the home front. We can't be buying this or that. And when I'm upfront with her like that, she knows that, right? It's not like my wife is out there buying Louis Vuitton, Gucci, this or whatever. But at the same time, like if we're going through a hard time, she knows, okay, I probably shouldn't buy that $100 air fryer on Amazon right now, even though our air fryer just broke down. Versus like, man, if times are good and she's experiencing that and knows that. And yeah, I just went through an acquisition and it just got multiple millions of dollars in my bank account. Okay, man, I'm going to buy that air fryer and I'm going to buy whatever the freak I want, right? So it's like, because then they'll be rewarded in the high times and they'll peel back and go down with you on the low times, right? So it's like, that's kind of
that communication is huge.
It's super
just a little
key.
Scary because you're like, as the man, at least I
want to
like,
provide.
Like I don't want her to burden her with my issues. Like this is the business that I'm the idiot that got us into. So I don't want to come to her with my problems. But man, they help.
But at least in my case, my wife knew I was very entrepreneurial from the get-go. Like she knew what she was getting into. I did not bait and switch her like, hey, like I'm going to be a doctor. Oh, just kidding. Going to go be an entrepreneur, right? It was more like in college, like I was telling you before, in my past history, I was building applications, doing software, doing entrepreneurial things when literally the day I met her. So I've always been that way. She kind of knew that. So it was kind of expected and communicated like from the start.
But yeah, that's wife, dad, advisors, just leaning on other people. Because I think, again, it's like, and I'll do this with myself anytime I'm too hard on myself. It's like, well, what if this was my daughter's business? And she's going through, I'd be like, oh, wow, I'd be like, so proud of her and be like, don't stress about this. Even if it fails, like XYZ, or even if you have to do this, like look what you actually accomplished. So like treating myself as if I were treating a loved one is something that really shifts my mindset.
And surrounding yourself with people like that too. Like even though mine was my dad, who was my business advisor, or my wife, who obviously is my spouse, like we're talking about family members, but even finding someone in mentorship that's not your family member that you're just close to and can be open with and have those kind of conversations with. I just remember even my wife making comments all the time like, hey, Tyler, you'll figure this out. And if you don't, who cares? You can at the very least go be a manager at McDonald's and provide for this family, right? Like that's the bottom of the barrel. So I'm like, okay, like if that's her expectation, right? It's like, okay, I can go take this risk and she's still going to love me. She's still going to support me. I think I'm qualified to be a manager at McDonald's. So like, let's take this shot. You know what I mean? So
that's awesome that you have that. Okay. Since Dev Mountain, now I want to get into, if you'll allow me, you sell and entrepreneurs, it's so easy for us to be sucked into the identity of our business. And then you sell and you're like, what do I do? What do I do? How do you find the purpose and where do you find fulfillment from?
I definitely went through that. You know what I mean? Like, for Dev Mountain was a rocket ship and I was lucky to have that. Like we started in 2011, 2012, sold in 2016, like 4 years in, it was like such an amazing return for everybody involved. But for those 4 or 5, 6 years, even like a year or two of post acquisition, I stayed with the company until 2018. I was definitely known as like the Dev Mountain guy. Oh, like that's Tyler Richards. He did Dev Mountain. And now we're freaking old news. Like no one really even knows who we are or what we do or what happened. But so
when the brand was bought by Capella, you said?
Capella University.
Is it all Capella University or did they keep the branding?
6 months after we sold to Capella was actually bought by Strayer.
Okay.
So if you've ever heard of Strayer University, that's who bought Capella. So now Dev Mountain is a Strayer brand.
But do they still run Dev
Mountain? Still thriving, still going to this day. Just had lunch with the person over the program like last month, and things are going well.
The Dev
Mountain brand lives on. If they ever got rid of that, I'd be like, hey, can I buy that back from you? Like I'll pay you pennies on the dollar and do it again. You know what I mean? But no, they definitely invest in the brand. We were one of the first kind of brands in the country, and it has a lot of power behind that name. So
So you sell it, you're still with the company for 2 years, and kind of how did that transition happen and kind of talk about the identity.
The identity crisis. That every founder I feel like goes through. Like, you know, every founder, it's your baby, right? When you create something like that, it's really, it's obviously hard to sell it from like, the brand side and like, oh, I built this thing, but obviously you get compensated for that acquisition, for that sell. That liquidation event that happens is obviously life-changing, right? So it's totally worth it. But as far as like me as a person, my identity, I definitely went through a little bit of like, wow, what is next, right? And it was tough.
Talking to an entrepreneur that maybe is going to experience that in the future.
Yeah.
How do you prepare for that? So I guess the identity crisis isn't as hard.
Yeah. I think everybody, we got to keep the end goal in mind. I think everybody gets into entrepreneurship, obviously, for wealth creation, right? I don't think anybody would go through the pains, the ups, the downs, the crisis, like the red lines, the employee management, the drama, everything you go through in building a company if it wasn't for the end goal, which is, obviously some form of payoff, whether that's an acquisition or some kind of public offering or IPO or any kind of liquidation event. That's obviously why people get involved, and kind of keeping that in mind, because like you asked,
this is what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah, like this is what I'm supposed to do. Like this is the reason why we started it, right? Was to make money, to put my family ahead, to get ahead in life, for wealth creation, so that I can put myself and my family in a good spot. So I say that it was hard to let go of the Dev Mountain brand and step away from it, but at the same time, like, man,
you're like, I got money.
You got money in your bank account. I literally remember the exact spot where I was when that life-changing money came into my bank account. I literally remember the 3-foot radius where I was standing when I pulled down my app on my bank account and it refreshed and I saw 7 digits in my bank account. I'm like, holy, whatever word that's allowed on here. That it was crazy, right? It was crazy. And like when you have those kind of,
just the perspective.
Yeah, you got to keep the perspective.
Yeah, I'm not the Dev Mountain
guy,
person, but it doesn't matter. That's not how you were anyway.
The value,
you were Tyler Richards.
That
built a company called
I was
Dev
given
Mountain.
the value for that, right? The value, I took as much value out of that brand and that creation, that business, that startup that I could. Now time to move on. But that lasted only for a little bit. I went on to other projects and other things, and mostly, honestly, investing in things, which is what I'm doing 24/7 today.
Which is the Startup Ignition Fund.
Yeah.
Is that what it's called?
Yeah, the Startup Ignition Ventures. Yeah.
Ventures, okay.
Yeah.
And how's that going? Tell us
really
about
good,
that.
really well.
That was, you guys launched it
last year.
This year?
Last year. August of last year. So it's been a little bit over a year now. We've made 14 investments.
That's what I was going to ask.
Out of the fund now. We're a very early stage venture fund. We invest like first checks into tech software companies. We're a small fund in comparison to the whole landscape of VC. It's a $20 million fund, but we write anywhere from $250 to $750K checks. With the intention of like investing very first, like instead of going to your rich Uncle Harry, who's a dentist, or your great grandma, like come to Startup Ignition Ventures.
And you guys are minority partners. You're letting founders keep.
Yeah.
Which is hard to find as well. They're like, I want 51% right off the bat. And you're like, no.
Well, we're investing in tech, right? Which is a little bit different of a valuation from like a services-based company or a product type company, right? The valuations are nicer and higher. And so there's a lot more for the founders to kind of sell and play with in raising venture capital. We're very founder friendly because we've been in this seat before, right? Like, I've been an operator. I've been a founder. I've started companies before. I don't want to be egregious and like this ogre that comes in and makes all these demands, because sitting on the other side of the table, I would hate that as a founder. I want to be something that founders are attracted to, not something that founders regret getting into business with, right?
And with us raising capital a few times, and you talk with those guys that are young dudes, late 20s, early 30s, and they've never ran a business because they've told you, and they're going to make the decision on, and they're vetting your business. You're just like, dude, I don't want you guys.
Yeah.
I want somebody that's been in the trenches.
We're founder first, and we're definitely in the trenches. Like my partner on is my dad, right? Who we've talked about on this podcast the whole time. We're partners in it. We're the two general partners of the fund, and, we're super roll up our sleeves, get involved, super mentorship heavy. Just my dad can't not be that way. Like even if he doesn't know you and you're asking him a question about cap tables, like he will roll up his sleeve and for 45 minutes, he'll give you a lecture on how cap tables are supposed to work. Like that's just how he is.
With him and my dad a few years ago, my dad's business. And he's just as happy as me to help out everybody.
He just loves it though. He was a professor at BYU for 12 years. It's just the teacher in him. It's the educator in him. And that's why we do the boot camp side of things too, which is after the Dev Mountain boot camp, my dad was like, hey, I'm going to leave BYU. Let's start Startup Ignition, which was first a boot camp. Now it's a venture fund. But that boot camp side of things, like he took his 12 years of content and curriculum from BYU, slapped it into a boot camp. And it's not a moneymaker by any means. It does not pay any form of bills, right? It's super cheap. We just want people to have skin in the game so that they're actually interested in learning and want to be there.
The other thing that I've thought about too, with so much demand, and me just being like, everybody needs to freaking do this. Is like, do you just do online courses and stuff like that? But people don't take online courses seriously.
Online's
Have you guys
hard.
thought about that?
So I told you, I sold the technical web development boot camp, the coding boot camp. And I just had lunch with one of the guys that was put in charge over that boot camp at Strayer just last month. And he told me when COVID hit, they went to 100% online, right? And I was like, how was that transition? He was like, honestly, at first it was so hard because Dev Mountain was known as like an in-person physical lecturing curriculum in person, right? With like mentors and teachers over your shoulder, over the keyboard, helping you, right? It's just a different way of learning than online. But he said about a year into COVID, they really figured it out and really transitioned into online. And now he told me, now our whole initiative is to get back off online and get back into in-person because the outcome is way better. People learn way better in person than just the nuances of being face-to-face,
it's just
right?
hard for me to sit in front of a computer for as long as sitting in front of somebody that I can say, hey, I mean, how do I do this? Or like, oh, I'm going to have a chat. I'm like, no, I just want a phone call.
How old are you? I know you're in your 30s, are you not, right? 30. Like, yeah, I'm in my 30s and we're still old, but like still young enough to have had college online courses. Yeah. All my college classes that were online when I was going through my college and university, the ones that were online were so horrible. I did not pay attention, literally falling asleep at the lectures, like putting it on triple speed just to get through it so they knew that I was getting through it. I didn't learn anything versus the ones that were in person, way better, like that had labs or whatever. That's the kind of learner that I am. I'm not an online learner. And I think that's like the majority of people.
So to talk, coming back to the joy and fulfillment.
Yeah.
You being an entrepreneur and a business owner versus you being an investor and a mentor.
Yeah.
How does that differ and which one do you like better in the lens of joy and fulfillment? So
it's really hard to be a founder. It's so hard to be an entrepreneur. Like being an entrepreneur and a founder is so much harder than being an investor or mentor, right? But I don't think you should be an investor or mentor without going through the paces of being a founder and entrepreneur and learning the ropes, right? And that's why sometimes especially in like the financing and fundraising and VC world, you find a lot of these guys that come through and like they're raising these funds or creating this VC or creating this investment fund or whatever that focuses on venture without even having any experience within venture themselves. They're just these financial guys that really know their books and know their numbers, but they don't really actually know
the decision-making process,
trenches of entrepreneurship, right? So it's like, they're two completely different sides of the table, but they're both great. But honestly, I'm really enjoying the investing side because I'm learning a ton from my dad, right? He's been doing this for 30 years. He had a company go public back in the .com era. And ever since then, literally since the early 2000s, he's been investing. So he's got like 25 years underneath his belt. And it's awesome to be working side by side with him, just understanding like deal structure and, opportunities and, due diligence and whatever it is that we're doing on our side of the table. So it's been fun, but
yeah, I spoke with one of our investors. He just texted me, and he invested last year, maybe in August.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh yeah, the last month's been great. We got this government money. We're settling the lawsuit. We're selling franchises. We're opening a ton. But 3 and 2 months ago, it was hell.
Yeah.
And he goes, that's the benefit of being an investor. He goes, you were staying up late, and I wasn't.
Yeah.
I was like, I hate you, Alan.
Operating is hard, but that's why you get rewarded, right?
You get the lion's share of it.
You get the lion's share of everything that's going down, right? So I think founders, if everybody could have a really easy founder, entrepreneur, CEO, co-founder type role, and have it be a breeze and then also get the huge payoff in the end, I think everybody would do it, right? I think there's a reason why there's only a handful of like really successful entrepreneurs because it takes a lot out of you, and it takes a lot of smarts, it takes a lot of grit, it takes a lot of risk, it takes a lot of hard work, but in the end, there's no way to generate wealth better than being an entrepreneur in the United States. That's the beauty of America, is just like anybody can start a company and start a business and sell it for millions and millions of dollars and generate life-changing money, right?
This is a John Richards advice to me. About a year ago, I was building these homes. No, it was 2 years ago, I guess. I had 2 homes that were being built, like rental properties.
Oh, to investment properties.
Yeah, investment properties.
Yeah.
Anyways, and I was like, but I need $100,000 or $200,000 or whatever I needed to close on it. But I was like, but I actually want to throw it into Dirty Dough. Like, John, what should I do? Because I don't want to walk away. Like, this was COVID, and like every month they were going up by like 10,000. It's like, I would be walking away from 150,000 if I don't invest this money. And he's like, real estate, you could make good money. You can make a 5% or a 10% or 25% return. But he's like, in businesses, you make 100x return.
Oh yeah.
Not percent, like
multiple.
10,000. And I was like, okay. And I actually looked at what I bought Dirty Dough for and what the return was at that time. I was like, all right, there's my answer.
Yeah.
So it was just
invest in yourself, man.
Completely different as far as changing the lens. But if I'm hearing you right, the stress, so the reward of selling a business is probably more, but now that you don't have to do that and you're investing in just rooting and mentoring others, that's the better lifestyle. Am I hearing you right on that?
It's definitely the natural evolution of an exited entrepreneur, right? Like exited entrepreneurs, their first thing that they usually tend to is investing in new entrepreneurs, right?
Yeah.
And so I'm kind of going through that. I've been doing that ever since I sold my company. I've been investing since 2016 and now officially with a fund since last year as an actual formalized VC. It's interesting on the investing side because you get to see all these different markets or, interact in all these different spaces, interacts with different products and different teams. Because like I just told you, we have 14 portfolio companies now. Like my days are full of listening to startup pitches and helping those portfolio companies, and they're all in different spaces versus like the grind of entrepreneurship. Like you're Dirty Dough's founder, like you are in Dirty Dough every day, 24/7. And that's not going to change until some kind of event happens. Right. And so that's the difference is on the investment side, I get to kind of diversify what I'm working on. It's awesome. I'm being entertained, something new and fresh all the time versus being a founder. It's just like, this is it. I'm married to it. This is my baby. And this is what I'm doing until that changes for the unforeseeable future. Right. So it's just a different grind.
Yeah. And I feel like most people get a lot of joy and fulfillment from helping others. And that's where I think like that would be a really fun role to play. Like I'm going to help you financially and as a mentor, as an investor.
Yeah.
And share the knowledge that I have with my exits. So anyways, that's where the question came from.
I think we take the approach of like, we talk to so many different companies every day. Like literally at Startup Ignition Ventures, we're probably talking to 1, 2, 3, sometimes up to 5 new startups a day, right? Where we're hearing these pitches, listening to their pitch deck, getting their business model, understanding what their deal is and what they're trying to do and accomplish. And even if we're not going to get involved in them financially, we're always there to be the mentorship side of things. And
I've never seen that anywhere else. You're like, we're not going to invest, but I'll help you out anyway. You're like, who are you guys?
Yeah. And that's just my dad. That's kind of how he's been. But for better, for worse, he's kind of known as like the frankest guy on the street. Like he will not like sugarcoat anything. He will tell you straight up that your idea sucks and that your business model is horrible and it will never work. And so a lot of teams that come across us, they're kind of upset with us sometimes when we give that harsh criticism or that feedback back to them at the very beginning, but almost always they will come back to us 3, 6, 9, 12 months later and be like, you guys were 100% right. Like what you said is exactly what was happening. I was trying to raise on this term, on this deal, on this valuation. It never happened. I was chasing a pipe dream. And the second I did what your feedback told me to do, I actually landed financing or I actually pivoted and did this thing. And now I got a successful business, right? So we hear that all the time. So we do that because being an entrepreneur on the other side of the table, trying to raise funds, I hated it when VCs told me, oh, this is great, but it's not a fit for me right now or whatever.
Like, no, it's
with
not.
No feedback.
Yeah. And so how are you going to pivot?
Yeah. It's like, what am I? Okay. So I think, okay, this is great. No, on to the next VC. Hopefully this VC likes me or hopefully this VC gives me money. But I loved it when a VC or a mentor or someone gave me harsh criticism. And then I actually really took that into consideration. I'm like, okay, wow, I need to do X, Y, and Z now. I need to go and pivot. I need to make this change or I need to do this thing differently. VCs and investors and mentors are really the feedback loop for founders, right? Like if no one's telling a founder that they're doing a bad job or something's off or something's not working, then how are they ever going to hear that? They're never going to change. Then they're just going to beat their head against the wall for 12 months, a year and a half of their life without any success. So I think it's really important for us to be that feedback loop for entrepreneurs.
So about 2 years ago, again, I'm like trying to get John on the board. He's like, you guys do cookies? I'm like, I do tech.
He's so tech.
But I need you, John. And
but you got him.
and I was still in the solar company. I'd sold it, but I had a salary. And I was like literally doing 1 or 2 meetings a week. And he goes, you have to leave that. Yeah. And I was like, no, I got this stock and I got a salary. It's like, you have to leave it, so I'm not going to do this.
Yeah, you got to go full time.
And then the other thing, I was like, okay, so I left that. Then I had some partners that were part-time. And he goes, they have to be full-time or they have to be out. And I was like, no, but we're different. He's like, everybody says that, full-time or out.
You're a special snowflake.
And
that's his line.
And we got him out. Yeah.
Don't be a special snowflake.
Got him out. And that was another huge pivotal thing of me leaving all solar,
and going all in,
focusing,
Yeah.
and then also getting anybody who didn't want to come in full time completely out.
Yeah.
Which we were able to do with pre-negotiated terms.
Look what you've accomplished, though.
Oh, it worked. Like, there's no way I
you
could have
just got
done
to
it.
think
Looking
about
back,
that for a second.
I was like, I could not have done it.
If you go part-time for a year, right? Like, let's say even just 20% of your time is dedicated to Dirty Dough for a year versus 100% of your time. Look at the multiple further you are ahead, right? How long would it taken you to get Dirty Dough to where it is right now if you would have done that for part-time? 10 years?
Yeah, there's no way.
Or more.
And those
right?
are the scary decisions. You're like, wait, so I have to like
risk, man. It's
fire
risky.
my partners and pay him out and this and that. He's like, or get him full time. You choose. I was like, anyways.
Yeah.
Looking back, there's no way we would be even
close
10th of where we're at right now if I still had those partners and we're all working part-time and I'm doing that. Anyway, so last question.
Yeah.
What do you want to be remembered by? What's the legacy that you want to leave behind?
I think it would be around that. Like, even if we're hurting feelings or being super frank or being super, honest in our candid feedback, I'd love to be known as the guy around town that's like, man, just like my dad is, right? Where he helps startups, but he's super frank and gives honest, real feedback and doesn't pull any punches. Like, I think as being a VC or now being an investor and even being a mentor, advisor, whatever, I want to be known as that, as like, hey, Tyler and John are the guys that you can go to and get real honest feedback from, and also be very helpful, and they're real and they've been around the block. So take it in for what it's worth, but also like they know what they're talking about kind of people. Like, I think I'd love to be known as that, like just an honest, good, candid guy. You know what I mean? Doesn't pull punches. So. Okay. Well, Tyler, I appreciate your time. Yeah, Bennett, thank you. How do listeners connect with you? Startupignition.com, startupignition.vc. We're working on a brand new website, but just go to startupignition.com. Look us up. Personally, you're on LinkedIn. Medias, I'm on LinkedIn. Tyler Richards is the worst generic name ever. So go find my LinkedIn and then mutual connection. Yeah, the mutual connection of Tyler Richards. Go to Bennett's LinkedIn, because if you go to Tyler Richards on LinkedIn, you're going to see 100,000 people named it. So, but LinkedIn, social media, Twitter, X, Facebook, Instagram. I'm on all of them. So yeah. Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Tyler. Okay, see you guys.